What if the last photo you ever took showed the thing that took you? The first time I knew something was wrong was the moment I saw her eyes in that photo. I wasn't ready to hear her voice again. Not like that. Not from a file sent anonymously weeks after the police gave up. The last time I saw Eleanor, she was boarding a flight with lavender oil in her carry-on and a book about healing ancestral trauma clutched to her chest. She hugged me twice before walking away, said she just needed time to breathe, said this retreat was different, that it was safe, that he couldn't find her there. She believed that. She needed to, because she knew, deep down, he was still watching. It was supposed to be a 7-day escape. Instead, it became a silent place where every camera glitched, every alibi blurred, and every truth felt like it was being told underwater. They said she walked into the sea, that grief swallowed her. But that's not what happened. And if you listen closely to what she left behind, the dreams, the drawings, the final voicemail no one wanted to hear, you'll understand why I can't let this go. Why she wasn't just running from her past. She was being hunted by it. This is what happened to my sister. This is what was hidden, beyond the veil. Eleanor always had this warmth to her, not just in the way she smiled, but in how her entire face would light up when she laughed. But in this photo, taken just hours before she vanished, her smile was there, sure, but her eyes weren't. They looked disconnected, almost rehearsed, as if the real Eleanor had stepped out of her own body and left behind a version the world expected to see. She was barefoot on the balcony of her retreat villa, holding a glass of rose like she didn't really want it, the sun dipping behind her like a curtain closing on a stage. You wouldn't notice anything was off unless you knew her. I knew her, and I knew something else too. She wasn't alone in that room. It was late March when she flew out to the retreat on Morwen Island, a small private island off the coast of Cornwall, England. Most people haven't heard of it. That's the point. It was marketed as a wellness sanctuary for women dealing with trauma. Unwind beneath the sacred veil, the brochure read, "And remember who you were before the world taught you fear." Eleanor had been searching for peace. I think part of her was also searching for an ending. She'd been through a lot in the past 5 years. There was the relationship, the man no one ever met, the sudden move across the country, the whispers of spiritual manipulation, and something she once called emotional possession. There were hospital visits, anxiety attacks, a restraining order that mysteriously got lost in the system. But Eleanor had rebuilt. She became a trauma recovery coach, started hosting group circles. She even smiled again, real smiles, until this retreat. She texted me the first night from the island. "It's quiet here, too quiet. Feels like the kind of place you don't leave, you just disappear slowly. But the cliffs are beautiful. I'll send photos." That last sentence was the kind she always tacked on. Something light and deflective. Something to convince me not to worry. But I always worried. Especially when she told me the name of her villa. The Vale. The retreat center was built on top of what used to be a 19th century monastery. The kind where monks lived in silence and isolation, praying to be closer to something they could never fully describe. Morwen Island was sold to a wellness developer after the monastery burned down in 1971. That fire killed 3 men. The cause was never determined. Locals just said the island didn't want people there anymore. Eleanor found that out later, during one of her late-night scrolls through Reddit. While lying awake in that villa with no TV, no internet, no company except the ocean wind and the soft thud of footsteps above her room. There wasn't supposed to be an upstairs. The first voicemail she sent me from the island was crackly and distant. You could hear the wind, the gulls, then just her voice, hushed like someone was listening. "Hey, you're probably asleep. I just had this dream." No, not a dream. It felt real. He was here. He walked through the wall. And he said, "We were never meant to end." I know how that sounds. Okay? I'm just gonna do some grounding work and go back to sleep. Love you. She never left messages like that before. Not unless she was scared. Not unless it was happening again. The next morning, she didn't respond to any of my texts. By the afternoon, I tried calling the front desk. The woman who answered said Eleanor had skipped breakfast and didn't show up for group yoga. That wasn't like her. She was meticulous with her routines, especially on retreats. By sunset, I had already emailed the U.S. Embassy. By sunrise, she was declared missing. The police said she left on foot. There were faint footprints in the sand leading down to the cliffs. A single sandal caught between two rocks. No signs of struggle. No blood. No note. They ruled it suicide within 72 hours. They were wrong, because they never checked what was behind the bedroom mirror. They never listened to the last audio file saved on her voice memo app. They never asked why the security camera feed was erased for exactly 1 hour and 11 minutes. Starting at 2:57 a.m., the time the night guard stepped away from his post. They closed the case before it ever truly opened. But I didn't. I flew to England 5 days later. I booked the same villa, slept in the same bed, walked the same trail she disappeared from. And on my first night, as I stood alone on that balcony with the wind pressing hard against my chest, I swear I heard her voice, whispering from the waves below. "He's not done." They found her journal hidden beneath a loose floorboard in cabin 6. Folded pages, damp at the edges, torn in places like someone tried to erase what she wrote, but changed their mind halfway through. The handwriting was hers. Tight, slanted, trembling in some entries. And the dates? They started 2 days before she ever checked in. "He followed me here. They say no phones, but I keep mine hidden under the mattress. Just in case. There's a man who hums outside my window every night. No one else hears it." The final page was the most chilling. "If you're reading this, tell my sister not to believe them. This place is not what it says it is. The veil is thin here, and something's coming through. Tomorrow's sunrise will be my last. I know that now." The retreat claimed she never seemed afraid. Said she participated in every meditation, every cleansing ritual, every group reflection. But when I checked the retreat's archived footage, the camera outside cabin 6 glitched every single night from 2:13 to 2:37 a.m. Every single night. And during those blackout windows, the sound of humming barely audible was recorded on a backup microphone by accident. Same melody every time. No one claimed it. And according to the guest roster, no male guests were housed in that section of the property. No staff were scheduled for those hours. I took the audio to a sound analyst. He slowed it down, filtered the layers. His face turned pale when he looked at me and said, "It's not humming, it's whispering, in a language I don't recognize." 3 days before Eleanor vanished, she requested to move to cabin 11, farthest from the woods, closer to the main lodge. She never explained why. They denied her request, said there was no availability. But when I looked at the logs, cabin 11 was empty. They lied. And whatever she was afraid of, it wasn't just paranoia. Because in her journal's margin, barely legible under a smear of candle wax, she wrote one more line. "He doesn't knock. He waits." And from that point on, no one ever saw Eleanor again. The morning Eleanor vanished, the retreat claimed she left during a solo meditation walk at dawn. No one saw her go. No staff accompanied her. No cameras showed her leaving. But when I requested the visitor log from the front gate, the logbook that every person had to sign going in or out, her name had been removed. Not crossed out. Erased. As if someone took whiteout fluid, covered her exit timestamp, then photocopied the page to make it look untouched. But under the UV scanner at the county records office, you could faintly make out 6:42 a.m., Eleanor H. Walking path, East Woods. Except there's one massive problem. There is no East Woods walking path. Not officially. Not on the brochures. Not in the retreat map. Not on Google Satellite. But when I zoomed in on archived aerial footage from a local hiking drone enthusiast, there was something. A narrow trail, barely visible through the trees, winding behind the cabins and curving away from the property's official grounds. It ended at what looked like an old, abandoned cottage. Its roof caved in, the surrounding land fenced off with rusted wire. No signage. No mention of it in any property registry. No utility bills. No history. Like it wasn't supposed to be there. I called the previous owner of the land, a woman named Ms. Valentina Rose. She's 87. Lives in a care home 2 towns away. She hadn't spoken about the property in years. When I said Eleanor's name, her voice went cold. She's not the first to vanish out there, she whispered. That's why I sold it. There's something in those woods that doesn't let go. I asked her if she ever saw it. She was quiet for a full 13 seconds, then said, "No, but I heard it. It stands just outside the tree line. It hums, like it wants you to join in." The same humming Eleanor described in her journal. The same sound the analyst filtered and found hidden whispers beneath. Ms. Rose added one last thing before hanging up. The first girl that vanished out there? Her name was Marion. 1978. She said the same thing your girl did. She said the veil was thin. I contacted the local police department to file a formal missing person case. They pulled Eleanor's file and paused. Said her name wasn't listed under any missing persons report. Not in the system. Not flagged. Not even archived. I gave them the case number the retreat said they filed. The officer double-checked. "That's not a case number," he said. "That's the ID for a wellness check. Not a disappearance. A wellness check. For a woman who left a journal saying she wouldn't survive the sunrise. Who was last seen walking toward a trail that isn't on any map. Who wrote, 'Tell my sister not to believe them.' And that's when I knew. Someone was actively trying to erase her. Not just her exit. Not just her paperwork. Her entire presence. But the deeper I dug, the more it felt like she wanted someone to find the truth. Because 1 week after her disappearance, her sister received a package. No return address. No fingerprints. Inside, Eleanor's necklace. And a photograph. A blurry image of Eleanor. Standing in front of the abandoned cottage, with someone else standing behind her. Their face scratched out. The photo haunted me. Not just because Eleanor looked scared. Eyes wide, posture tense, like she was bracing for something behind her. But because whoever stood behind her wasn't just scratched out. They were scratched into the paper, over and over again until the back of the photograph was worn thin. Like the person who did it wanted to erase a memory that refused to die. But that's not the part that chilled me. On the back of the photo, written in faint blue ink, almost illegible from smudging. "He watches through them. Don't look too long." No signature. No timestamp. Just that warning. I showed the image to a retired photo forensics expert. He ran multiple filters to see what was beneath the scratches. Only one layer showed the vaguest outline, and even then it made no sense. The figure behind Eleanor was tall, far taller than her 5 feet 8 inches frame. But its arms were too long, its outline distorted, as if the shape didn't obey normal human proportion. He paused the enhancement. "There's something else," he whispered. "Look at the tree line." Behind Eleanor, barely visible, was a tree trunk, and in its bark was a shape carved deep. A symbol, a vertical slit with 4 short lines beneath it, like dripping blood. He zoomed in. "That symbol isn't decorative," he said. "It's a sigil. Old, possibly pagan. Could mean veil, passage, or worse, offering." I went back to the retreat, pretended to book a day visit under a fake name. They let me in, and the moment I stepped onto the property, something felt off. Like the quiet wasn't peaceful, it was forced. Even the wind through the trees felt rehearsed, like nature was holding its breath. I asked one of the staff casually about the trail behind the cabins. She smiled too quickly. "No trails back there. That area's restricted, swampy, dangerous." But I caught something in her tone. A shift. She knew I wasn't just curious. She was guarding something. Later that afternoon, I snuck away while everyone was in their group meditation. I took the dirt path Eleanor mentioned in her journal, followed it past the cabins, past the tree line, into the real forest. And that's when I saw it. The fence. Rusted wire, bent in places, almost as if something had come out through it. Beyond that, the cottage. Exactly like in the photograph. Dilapidated. Rotting. This door cracked open, like it had been waiting. I should have stopped there, but I didn't. Inside, the air was frozen, despite it being mid-June. Dust swirled with each step like ash in a firestorm. In the corner was a wooden chair facing a shattered mirror. But I won't focus on that. I know the mirror trope hasn't worked for your audience. On the walls were scratches, deep, erratic, overlapping, some spelling things out, others just madness scribbled in wood. But one phrase appeared multiple times. We cannot wake up if we never went to sleep. It was carved in the same handwriting as the journal Eleanor left. On the floor was a book, leather-bound, so old the pages crumbled at the edges. It wasn't hers. The name inside read, Property of Marion F. March 1978. I flipped it open. The entries were horrifying. They told me I could see the real world if I walked beyond the veil. They said reality was the dream, and this place was the truth. At night, he comes to check who's still resisting. If you lie still and pretend to believe, he passes you by. But if you question it, he stares through your skin. I dropped the book, because tucked in its last page was a list of names, each followed by a year. Eleanor's was at the bottom, next to 2023, but hers had a circle around it, and one word beside it, returned. The more I investigated Eleanor's disappearance, the more one name kept slipping through the cracks. Mentioned in passing, never written down, never officially acknowledged. Her name was Cassandra Bly, and she wasn't on the guest list. Not on the intake forms. Not in the retreat's digital logs. Not in the insurance coverage. Not in any emergency contact records. And yet, every single witness I spoke to remembered her being there. But not in detail, just flashes. She wore a red shawl, sat at the back during meditation. I think she ran the herbal shop by the West Garden. She always walked alone, never made eye contact. Now that you mention it, I don't think she ever spoke. No last name, no record of payment, no assigned cabin, just there, and then gone. I tracked down an ex-staff member, Erica, who quit the retreat just 3 months after Eleanor's disappearance. She agreed to meet, on the condition that I didn't record the conversation. She looked shaken before she even sat down. Cassandra wasn't real, Erica said immediately. Or she was. But not in the way we understand. Everyone felt her more than saw her. I asked her what that meant. She pulled out her phone and showed me a photo. A group picture, taken during a moonlight ritual in early October. Staff, guests, candles lit, hands held. Right in the center of the photo was a blurred outline of a woman. Red shawl, face completely obscured. No eyes, no mouth, just smudge. Erica said she didn't notice it at first, until she showed the photo to a coworker who swore that no one had been standing there when it was taken. So she checked the live photo function. When she played the 2-second motion, the woman in red slowly turned her head toward the camera. No one else moved. No one else reacted. I started seeing her after that, Erica whispered. In my dreams. In reflections. Once in my rearview mirror while driving home from the retreat. Only I was alone in the car. That word again, reflections. But I won't linger there. You said no mirrors. Here's where it gets darker. 3 months after Eleanor vanished, the retreat deleted 72 hours of surveillance footage. Guess when? October 15th to 17th. The exact days when guests started whispering about a new woman in red. I filed a legal request. The retreat refused to comment. But a former IT contractor contacted me anonymously with one sentence. You're not looking for what's missing. You should be asking what was added. That same week, I got a message from Eleanor's sister. She found something in an old Dropbox account Eleanor had used in college. An audio file titled simply, Don't Forget the Red Shawl, Final MP3. Its contents were disturbing. 37 seconds of static. Then Eleanor's voice barely audible. Whispers, as if hiding. If you hear this, I need you to know. She's not human. She doesn't blink. She doesn't stop. And when she sings, The others forget I exist. Tell them I never left. I'm just somewhere underneath. That was the last digital trace of Eleanor West. And it left me with two questions. If Cassandra Bly was never on the guest list, who invited her? And if no one remembers speaking to her, how did she convince Eleanor to stay after that final journal entry? 3 months into Eleanor West's disappearance, the official search was all but abandoned. The forest had been combed, CCTV wiped, staff interviews inconclusive. No body, no belongings, no trace. But then came the call. It wasn't from the police, not the retreat, not a relative. It was from a landscape technician, a contractor brought in to trim overgrown hedges along the east boundary of the retreat grounds, near an old greenhouse that hadn't been used in years. He was not a spiritual person, didn't believe in ghosts, didn't even know about Eleanor's case. But he was scared. I saw a woman, he told me. She was barefoot, wearing gray, just standing there, not blinking. At first, he thought she was one of the guests in some kind of meditative trance. But when he stepped closer, she didn't move, just stared, blankly, until she whispered something. I forgot how to leave. He asked her if she was okay. She said nothing, then walked into the trees. He followed, only for her to vanish behind a tree trunk, less than a foot wide. When he told the retreat staff, they dismissed it. You probably saw a projection from one of the sound therapy cabins, they said. That side of the property is off-limits during Energy Alignment Week. He didn't buy it. That same week, a guest named Luisa Cabrera checked out of the retreat early. Her reason? She saw a woman crouched in the reflection of the koi pond, watching her. But when she turned around, there was no one behind her. She didn't mention mirrors. It was water. Luisa's exact words in the incident report. She looked sad, trapped. Her mouth was moving, but there was no sound. And she had a burn mark on her arm, like a crescent, like something had been pressed into her skin. When I showed her a photo of Eleanor West, she cried. That's her, Luisa whispered. That's the woman from the water. This wasn't an isolated incident. Over the next month, I tracked 4 separate former guests, each from different years, different states, different backgrounds. None of them knew each other. None had followed the case. Each one, completely unprovoked, mentioned seeing someone they weren't supposed to. One woman saw her near the compost bins. A man claimed she stood beside him during a group chant, mouthing different words. Another said she passed them a note in the retreat's library, then disappeared. Only one remembered the note. It read, "Find the well, beneath the chapel. Before she finds you." I asked the retreat manager about the well. He denied its existence, said there was no structure beneath anything. But archival records from the local council told a different story. In 1972, the land where the retreat now stood was privately owned by a religious sect known as the Path Below. They ran a quiet, isolated commune. No internet, no electricity. Their cornerstone belief? That spiritual elevation required descent into the literal earth. A hidden well, beneath the chapel, used for silent immersion. Ceremonies were said to include days of sensory deprivation underground. The sect dissolved in 1979 under mysterious circumstances. When the retreat took over in the 1990s, they rebuilt on top of the original structures, but never filled the well. Here's where everything changed. I spoke to a former contractor who had helped renovate the chapel back in 2002. He confirmed it. Yeah, there's a sealed stone hatch under the altar. Old steel ring in the center. No stairs. Just a drop. They made us pour concrete over it. Management said it was for safety. But here's the twist. The stone ring was missing during Eleanor's stay. Maintenance logs from that week showed a complaint from a guest about a strong metallic odor beneath the chapel. Guess what date that complaint was logged? October 14th, the day Eleanor vanished. So now we had a missing woman last seen near the chapel. Guests reporting sightings of her on retreat grounds. Audio recordings of her saying, "I'm just somewhere underneath," and a buried, sealed, centuries-old well beneath the chapel's foundation. The question wasn't just where Eleanor had gone. It was, what had been waiting down there for someone like her? And why did no one hear her scream? 3 months after Eleanor vanished from the retreat, her case had gone cold. No sightings, no fingerprints, no digital activity, nothing. Except one thing. The lodge kept charging her credit card. That's what alerted her sister, Michelle. The retreat claimed it was a glitch in the system, that her checkout was never processed properly. But when Michelle asked to see the signature from the supposed checkout form, they refused. Said it was missing. I filed for a court-ordered search of the property. It was denied. Private land. Protected by spiritual wellness exemptions. But Eleanor's sister didn't stop. She leaked the story to the press. And once national attention hit, the cracks widened fast. 3 ex-employees came forward. Each one told a piece of the same disturbing puzzle. The groundskeeper said he'd seen Eleanor walking in the woods barefoot at 3 a.m. with her eyes open, but not blinking. He thought she was sleepwalking, until she looked straight at him and whispered, "You should leave before he follows you too." A former chef said Eleanor tried to run. She packed in the middle of the night, but was intercepted by a staff member named Isaac, the same man now mysteriously scrubbed from employee records. The most damning testimony came from a meditation instructor. She claimed Eleanor confided in her, said she was being watched, manipulated. "They make us look inward," Eleanor told her. "But someone's using that to crawl outward." With public pressure mounting, a civilian drone team took matters into their own hands. They flew infrared drones over the entire forest surrounding the retreat. That's when they found it. A structure hidden deep in the woods. No road access, camouflaged under moss and tarp. No one had mentioned it. The media called it a prayer shack. But it was more than that. The authorities forced entry. Inside were 6 candlelit journals. One belonged to Eleanor. The others? All names of women listed as past guests, who'd also gone off-grid. The place reeked of damp incense, old cedar, and something foul they never publicly named. The floorboards had been hollowed beneath a rug. And there, in a linen wrap, was a lock of Eleanor's hair, and her phone. The last video on it was only 5 seconds long. Blurry, distorted, but it showed a figure, face obscured, whispering into her ear while she cried and nodded. The only thing you could hear her say clearly was, "I finally see him." Then the video cut. To this day, no charges have been filed. The retreat still operates. Different branding. Same land. Same owner. They call it the renewal path now. Offer full mind resets. Eleanor was never declared dead. But she was never found. Her sister keeps the journals. Says she reads 1 page a day. And each time, she swears she finds a new sentence that wasn't there before. Sentences like, "He never needed to find me. I found him. Some veils are meant to stay closed." And finally, "I'm still here." But the chilling part? That last one wasn't in Eleanor's handwriting. And no one knows who added it. If you want more chilling true crime stories like this one, don't forget to subscribe to the Veil of Secrets.